What does it really take to overcome setbacks, build lasting success, and rise above life's challenges? Is it natural talent, relentless hard work, or the hidden lessons found in every struggle that shape ordinary people into extraordinary leaders in ways we rarely notice until much later? I was 22 when I learned that failure tastes like copper pennies and feels like drowning in plain sight. My startup had just crashed. 3 years of 18-hour days, maxed out credit cards, and sleeping on my best friend's couch had led to exactly nothing. The app I'd built, the one that was supposed to revolutionize how people connect, had 12 users. 12. My mom, my dad, 2 cousins, and 8 people who'd accidentally downloaded it. "Maybe you should get a real job," Sarah said over coffee. She meant well, but the words hit like a sledgehammer. Sarah had been my girlfriend since college, back when I still believed that wanting something badly enough was the same as deserving it. "This is real," I said, but even I could hear how hollow it sounded. She sighed, stirring her latte with surgical precision. "Marcus, you're brilliant. You really are. But sometimes brilliant isn't enough." That night, alone in my studio apartment that smelled like instant ramen and broken dreams, I stared at my laptop screen. The code I'd written mocked me. Thousands of lines that added up to nothing. I'd always believed that talent was enough, that my natural ability to see solutions others missed would carry me through. I was wrong, but here's what I didn't know then. Failure wasn't my enemy. It was my teacher, and it was about to give me the hardest lesson of my life. The rejection letters started coming fast after that. Every tech company in the city, every startup, every consulting firm, they all said the same thing in different words. "We've decided to go with someone else." I kept a folder of them, a growing monument to my inadequacy. By month 4 of unemployment, I was working at a coffee shop downtown. The same one where Sarah had delivered her verdict, actually. The irony wasn't lost on me, especially when she walked in one Tuesday morning with someone new. Someone with a real job and a real future. "Marcus?" She looked genuinely surprised to see me behind the counter. "I didn't know you were working here." "Living the dream," I said, forcing a smile. The guy with her, tall, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that comes from never doubting you'll succeed, barely acknowledged my existence. After they left, I found myself staring at my reflection in the espresso machine. 22 going on 100, carrying the weight of every disappointing person I'd become. That's when I met Elena. She was maybe 70, came in every morning at exactly 7:30, ordered a black coffee and a blueberry muffin, and always left a $2 tip. She had kind eyes and hands that told stories I couldn't read yet. "You look like someone carrying the world," she said one morning, catching me during a moment when I thought no one was watching. "Just tired," I lied. "No," she said, settling into her usual corner booth. "Tired is when your body needs rest. What you have is heavier than that." Something about her voice made me stop wiping down tables. "What do you mean?" She gestured to the empty seat across from her. The coffee shop was dead anyway. It was Tuesday at 8 a.m., the deadest hour of the deadest day. "You remind me of my son," she said. "He used to carry that same weight, always pushing, always striving, never stopping to ask if he was pushing in the right direction. What happened to him?" Her smile was sad, but warm. "He learned that falling down isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it." Elena, it turned out, had run a small restaurant for 30 years. She'd failed twice before making it work. Lost everything the first time, nearly lost her marriage the second. But she kept going, and eventually, she figured it out. "The difference," she told me, "wasn't that I got smarter or more talented. It's that I learned to listen to the failures instead of just enduring them." I started staying after my shifts to talk with her. She told me stories about the early days of her restaurant, how she'd burned through savings, made catastrophic menu choices, hired the wrong people. But every failure had taught her something crucial, that talent alone never could. "Natural ability is like a muscle," she said one afternoon. "If you never stress it, it never grows." That conversation changed something in me. Instead of seeing my failed startup as proof of inadequacy, I started dissecting it. What had I missed? Where had my assumptions been wrong? What patterns could I identify? The answers were humbling and illuminating in equal measure. I'd built something I wanted, not something people needed. I'd assumed my technical skills were enough, ignoring marketing, user experience, and basic business fundamentals. I'd been so focused on being right that I'd never learned to be effective. Most importantly, I'd treated setbacks as verdicts instead of data. 6 months into my coffee shop tenure, I started building again. But this time was different. I talked to customers, really talked to them. I asked Elena and her friends what frustrated them about technology. I spent hours in that corner booth, not coding, but listening. The idea that emerged was smaller than my first attempt, less ambitious, more focused. A simple app to help small businesses track customer preferences and feedback. Not revolutionary, just useful. I built it slowly, testing every assumption, learning from every small failure before it became a big one. Elena became my first beta tester, and her feedback was ruthless and invaluable. "This button is confusing," she'd say, or "Why do I need to click 3 times to do something simple?" Each critique stung, but I'd learned to translate pain into progress. The app launched quietly on a Tuesday. Not with fanfare or press releases, just a soft introduction to a small market. 27 downloads the first day. I'd learned not to celebrate too early, but I'd also learned not to despair too quickly. By the end of the first month, I had 200 users. Real users, not just family members. Small restaurant owners, local shops, service providers. They were actually finding value in something I'd built. Elena watched all this with the quiet satisfaction of a teacher seeing a student finally understand a difficult concept. "You know what changed?" she asked one morning, 6 months after the app had launched and started generating enough revenue for me to quit the coffee shop. "I learned to listen." She shook her head. "You learned that you didn't have all the answers. That's different. The success wasn't instant or dramatic. No venture capital, no viral growth, no TechCrunch articles. Just steady, sustainable progress built on the foundation of every failure that had come before." 2 years later, the app was supporting a dozen employees and helping thousands of small businesses. Sarah stopped by the office once. We were friends again by then. The kind of friends you become when shared history matters more than old wounds. "I'm proud of you," she said, looking around at the modest but thriving company we'd built. "This is really something." "Thanks," I said, and meant it. But the real validation came from Elena, who'd become something between a mentor and a grandmother to me. "You know what I'm proudest of?" she said during one of our regular coffee meetings, though now I was buying, and we met at nicer places than the shop where we'd first talked. "What's that?" "You didn't change who you are," she said. "You just learned who you could become." That difference, between changing and becoming, took me years to understand. I was still the same person who saw solutions others missed, still had the same drive and natural instincts. But now I knew how to stress test those instincts, how to build on them rather than just rely on them. The hardest lesson wasn't about business or technology or even persistence. It was about the difference between being right and being effective, between having answers and asking the right questions. I think about that 22-year-old version of myself sometimes, the one who thought failure was the opposite of success rather than its prerequisite. He was so afraid of not being enough that he never learned how to become more. But here's what I wish I could tell him. Every setback you think is destroying you is actually building you. Every rejection that feels like an ending is really a redirection. Every moment when you feel like giving up is when you're closest to breaking through to who you're supposed to be. The weight you're carrying, it's not punishment, it's preparation. Elena passed away last spring. At her funeral, her son, the one who'd carried the same weight I had, told stories about how she'd helped dozens of people over the years, mostly by just listening and sharing her own hard-won wisdom. "She never told people what to do," he said. "She just helped them figure out who they were capable of becoming." I kept her corner booth reserved for a week after the funeral. Silly maybe, but it felt right. On the last day, I sat there with my laptop, working on the next iteration of the business, and I could almost hear her voice. "Still carrying the world?" she'd ask. "No," I'd answer. "Now I'm building one." The success I have now, the company, the team, the impact we're making, none of it came from natural talent alone. It came from learning that talent is just the starting point, not the destination. The real magic happens in the space between falling down and getting back up, in the willingness to let each failure teach you something you couldn't learn any other way. That's what it really takes to overcome setbacks and build lasting success. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of mind to treat every struggle as a teacher instead of an enemy. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find a mentor who helps you see that the weight you're carrying isn't holding you back. It's making you strong enough to lift others up when their turn comes to fall. The extraordinary leaders aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail forward, who turn their setbacks into comebacks, who understand that the most valuable lessons are written in the language of disappointment and spelled out in second chances. I'm still learning that language, still building on the foundation that my failures laid down. And every morning when I walk past that coffee shop, I remember the 22-year-old who thought he wasn't enough, and I'm grateful he was wrong about everything except one thing. He never stopped trying to become who he was meant to be. That, more than talent or luck or even hard work, is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. The willingness to let your failures sculpt you instead of break you, to see setbacks as setups for something bigger than you originally imagined. But the story doesn't end there. 3 years after Elena's funeral, I found myself facing a new kind of challenge. The business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We were processing millions of transactions, serving tens of thousands of small businesses, and had caught the attention of some major investors. This could be huge, David Chen said across the conference table. He represented a venture capital firm that wanted to inject $50 million into the company. We're talking about scaling nationwide, maybe international. You could be the next big platform. The offer was everything my 22-year-old self would have killed for. Fame, fortune, validation on a scale I'd never dreamed of. But sitting in that glass conference room, looking at spreadsheets full of projections and growth targets, all I could think about was Elena's voice. What would Elena say? I asked my co-founder James after the meeting. James had been with me since the early days, back when we were still working out of the coffee shop's back room. He understood the weight of the question. She'd probably ask what you're really building this for, he said. That night, I drove to Elena's old neighborhood. Her restaurant had closed 6 months after she died. Her son had tried to keep it running, but it wasn't the same without her steady presence. The building housed a chain sandwich shop now, efficient and soulless. I sat in my car outside, thinking about the path that had brought me here. Every decision point, every moment of doubt, every small victory that had accumulated into something larger than I'd planned. The next morning, I called David Chen and turned down the $50 million. Are you insane? James asked when I told him. Do you know what we're walking away from? I know exactly what we're walking away from, I said. The question is, do you know what we'd be walking toward? The VC deal would have meant rapid expansion, aggressive growth targets, and ultimately, losing control of the company's direction. We'd become beholden to investors who cared about returns, not about the small business owners who depended on us. Instead, we chose a different path. We grew slowly, organically, reinvesting profits back into better service and more thoughtful features. We hired carefully, prioritizing people who understood our mission over those with the flashiest resumes. It was during this period that I met Kevin. Kevin was 19, a college dropout who'd been working at the coffee shop where Elena and I used to meet. He had that same desperate hunger I'd recognized in myself, the kind that comes from wanting something so badly it physically hurts. I have this idea, he told me one afternoon when I stopped in for my usual order. It's probably stupid, but let me guess, I interrupted. An app that's going to change everything? He deflated slightly. Yeah, I know it sounds like every good idea starts, I said. Tell me about it. His concept was rough, half-formed, probably unworkable in its current state, but there was something there, a kernel of insight wrapped in youthful enthusiasm and naivete. He reminded me of myself at his age, minus the crushing weight of recent failure. What's the worst thing that could happen? I asked him. It could fail completely, he said without hesitation. And then what? He looked confused. And then I'd be a failure? No, I said, remembering Elena's gentle corrections of my own thinking. Then you'd have data. I started meeting with Kevin once a week, not as an investor or advisor, but as someone who'd walked a similar path. I watched him make the same mistakes I'd made, building for himself instead of his users, falling in love with features instead of solutions, treating every setback as a catastrophe instead of a course correction. But I also watched him learn faster than I had, maybe because he had someone to help him translate his failures into lessons, instead of letting them fester into self-doubt. Why are you doing this? He asked after about 6 months of our weekly meetings. His project had pivoted twice and was finally starting to gain real traction. Because someone did it for me, I said, and because the weight gets lighter when you share it. Kevin's app launched a year later. It wasn't the world-changing revolution he'd originally envisioned, but it was something better. A sustainable business that solved a real problem for real people. He'd learned the same lesson I had, just without having to fall as far first. Watching Kevin succeed reminded me why I'd turned down that VC money. Success isn't just about building something big, it's about building something meaningful, something that makes the world a little bit better than you found it. The real measure of extraordinary leadership isn't the size of your company or the amount of money you raise. It's the number of people you lift up along the way, the problems you solve, the positive ripples you create in the world. Elena had understood this intuitively. Her restaurant was never going to make her rich or famous, but for 30 years it had been a gathering place, a source of community, a proving ground for young people learning the restaurant business. She'd measured her success not in profit margins, but in the lives she'd touched. I started to see my own business differently. Yes, we were helping small businesses track customer preferences and feedback, but more than that, we were helping families stay afloat, helping entrepreneurs realize their dreams, helping communities maintain their unique character against the homogenizing force of big chains. Every customer wasn't just a user, they were someone's life's work, someone's bet on their own future, someone's attempt to build something meaningful. This shift in perspective changed everything about how we operated. We started offering free accounts to struggling businesses, not as a loss leader, but as an investment in the communities we served. We built features specifically for businesses too small for other platforms to care about. We hired support staff who understood that when someone called with a technical problem, they were really calling because their livelihood depended on our software working correctly. The growth was slower than what the VCs would have demanded, but it was deeper, more sustainable. Our customer retention rates were industry-leading. Our employees stayed with us because they believed in what we were building. Our reputation spread through word of mouth, one satisfied customer at a time. 5 years after turning down that first big investment, we got another offer. This time it was from a company that understood our mission, that wanted to acquire us not to change what we were doing, but to help us do more of it. The number was larger than the VC offer had been, but more importantly, the fit was right. They weren't buying us for our technology or our customer base. They were buying us for our values, our approach, our commitment to serving the customers that bigger companies ignored. I signed the papers on a Tuesday morning, exactly 7 years after Elena had first asked me why I looked like someone carrying the world. The acquisition meant financial security for me and my team, but it also meant something more important. The work would continue. The new parent company gave us more resources to serve more customers, to hire more people like Kevin who were hungry to learn and contribute, to expand our mission of helping small businesses thrive. At the celebration dinner, James raised a toast. To Elena, he said, who taught us that success isn't about proving you're smart enough. It's about proving you care enough. The room full of employees, partners, and friends raised their glasses. Many of them had never met Elena, but they all understood what she represented. The kind of leadership that lifts others up, that turns personal growth into collective progress, that measures success not just by what you achieve, but by what you enable others to achieve. Standing there, surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by the ripple effects of one elderly woman's wisdom, I finally understood what Elena had tried to teach me from the beginning. The weight I'd been carrying, the pressure to succeed, to prove myself, to justify my existence through achievement, had never been mine to bear alone. Extraordinary leadership isn't about being strong enough to carry the weight of the world. It's about being wise enough to help others discover their own strength, to build systems and communities and relationships that distribute the weight so everyone can lift a little and everyone can rise. The hidden lessons found in every struggle don't just shape us. They prepare us to recognize and nurture those same struggles in others. The setbacks we overcome don't just make us stronger. They make us more capable of helping others navigate their own obstacles. When I think about what it really takes to overcome challenges and build lasting success, I don't think about talent or hard work or even persistence. I think about Elena's corner booth, about weekly coffee meetings with Kevin, about all the moments when someone's failure became someone else's opportunity to serve, to teach, to lift up. The weight of tomorrow isn't a burden. It's a promise, not just that we can rise above our challenges, but that we can help others rise above theirs. And in the end, that's what transforms ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. Not the heights they reach, but the hands they extend to help others climb. The story continues in every mentorship, every second chance, every moment when someone chooses to see failure as a teacher rather than a verdict. It continues in the quiet victories of small businesses staying afloat, of young entrepreneurs learning to ask the right questions, of communities maintaining their character in an increasingly uniform world. Elena's legacy isn't just in what she taught me. It's in everyone I've been able to teach, everyone who will learn from them, and everyone who will learn from them in turn. The ripples spread outward, carrying forward the simple but profound truth she showed me that morning in the coffee shop. You don't have to carry the weight alone, and when you learn to share it, you discover it was never as heavy as you thought.